Welcome back to another episode of the Next Level Minds podcast. My name is Chris Chapman, and I am your host. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a podcast dedicated to those who want to reach a next level in their business, personal, or career life. Every other week, I'm blessed to sit down with a qualified guest, entrepreneur, content creator, or mover and shaker in their industry and walk through their story of how they have gotten from point A to point B and overcame various adversities along the way. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I just wanted to go ahead and reiterate my main goal, which is to impact over 1 million people by helping them reach a next level. So if you have not done this already, go ahead and share this episode with 3 friends who need to hear some motivational entrepreneurial content. And if you're really feeling special, go ahead and make a review of this podcast on Apple Podcast. Other than that, going into today's episode, I'm sitting down with Kuda Biza, who's a serial entrepreneur who started his first company when he was 9 years old in Zimbabwe. He moved to the States with just over $40 in his pocket, and since then he started multiple companies such as Nonbelievable, which is a socially conscious baked goods company that really donates meals for every box of cookies purchased. He also has a company called This Is My Era, which is a personal development brand, and he has a sports collectible company that he also runs as well. He's also a keynote speaker and has done a TED Talk that's absolutely amazing. So we're really going to dive into a lot of material today. Kuda is a very humble guy who knows a lot about entrepreneurship and giving back. So I'm super pumped to dive in to his story today. But other than that, as we like to say here at Next Level Minds, your mindset is your greatest weapon for the battle of success. Kuda, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the Next Level Minds podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. You mentioned you're in New Jersey right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey. It's a little chilly, but I love it.
Gotcha. Hey, as long as you love it, that's a huge plus, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I want to start off here with a fun question before we kind of dive into more of the whole business, entrepreneurial side of things. Obviously, researching your background, I saw that you were a Chelsea fan. So 2 questions along that. If you could be any position on the Chelsea team, what would that be? And second question, I think I saw they were 8th last time I checked. So how do you think they're going to finish off the season?
Yeah, so if I was to be on the Chelsea team, I would love to be a striker. Didier Drogba is my idol. So, I would love to do the things that, he did for Chelsea and more. So that would be my position. Regarding where we are in the table, the season is long, right? It's 38 games. There's still a lot of games to play. We're about 6 points away from top 4 from the 4th. So if we win, games and, the other results, shape in our favor, we're back in the mix. So, I wouldn't panic too much right now. It's a marathon sprint. Obviously, would love to be number 1, but, we're still building. It's a young team. So let's see what happens over the next, couple of weeks. And, we'll be curious to see in May when the season ends, where things will shape up. But we're also still in the Champions League. We're also still in the FA Cup. So there's still chances for us to get silverware this season.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Striker, did you say right or left, or does not even matter there?
Central.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the Oz League is just so competitive with the people that you're playing against on a weekly basis there on who you're playing. So.
Yeah, it's the toughest league, I think, in the world. Anyone can win it. I wouldn't be surprised if Leicester City, end up at the top. Liverpool are in there with a shout. Manchester United are also there in Manchester City. So it's unlike Spain where, it's either Barcelona, Atletico, or Real. The English Premiership, it's unpredictable, but that's what makes it thrilling and the most exciting league in the world.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to go to a Chelsea game in person?
So many.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, pre-COVID, on an average season, I'll probably go to maybe 4 or 5 games. So I'm a true fan, not just a TV one.
Yeah.
I make the trip out, and I've gone to both home and away games. Had the chance to meet some of the players.
Mm.
So all in all, I am a blessed fan. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I like to hear that you're an actual real fan because I always call myself a Manchester United fan, but I just watch it on TV and, of course, choose to play as them when I play FIFA. So I'm not even a real fan at the end of the day. So,
No, you are a fan. Like there was a stage in my life when I couldn't afford to do all of that, right?
hmm
But things have changed. I was in corporate for a while and whatnot, and kind of like went up the ladder a little bit. So, I'm pretty sure once you have the resources, I don't know if you do right now or not, but I'm pretty sure if you are really truly a Manchester United fan, that's an experience that you'd want to have. So I'm pretty sure you'd invest in it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, like post COVID, I hope to get over there and actually watch a game in person. So I know that'll be a lot of fun. But speaking on your background a little bit, obviously, researching, I saw you grew up in Zimbabwe and you started your first company at 9 years old. I think I saw on your TED Talk that it was a window cleaning business. So a couple questions on that. I mean, what was that like growing up in that area?
Well, beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, Africa is beautiful. A lot of the things that people see about Africa on the TV is obviously kind of like the not so beautiful side about Africa. But Zimbabwe, for example, we have one of the 8 wonders of the world, Victoria Falls. The weather is amazing. No wonder why, all the colonialists were coming down to Africa. And, we have a lot of resources as a continent in terms of, natural resources, land where you can, do a lot of farming. So for me, my upbringing was great. Yes, there were kind of like challenges we faced, but I mean, we all face challenges, right? So the way I view it, because I've been blessed to have lived in both Africa and also the West, there are problems in Africa that we face that are not problems in the US. So you think about things like food, poverty and things like that. They're more prevalent in third world countries than here in the US. But then there are more Western issues like, shootings and things like that, access to guns and whatnot. In Africa, we really don't have those types of challenges, well, at least to the degree that, the Western societies have it. So, you can never find a perfect place. There'll always be good things about it and bad things about it. But for me personally, growing up in Africa, I think was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it was through that experience that has actually led me to who I am today.
And I know I saw that you, I think were you're the only boy out of 5 kids, I believe, that you mentioned.
Yeah, I have 4 sisters. Well,
Gotcha.
now 3 because one of them passed away. But growing up, I was the only son. So it had its advantages sometimes, and also it had its disadvantages as well. But I love my sisters. They really looked out for me and helped me out. And also my parents really wanted to make sure that as I grew up to become a man, I am a man of integrity. I'm a man who's really focused on not just myself, but the world, and is highly driven and motivated.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit on that story of starting the first business when you were 9?
Yeah. So, at that time, I never really thought about, getting into business or anything. What happened was just necessity. I needed an ice cream. I went to my mom and my mom said no. I had been naughty that morning. So it was a way for her to, I guess, punish me. But what she then did, she wakened the lion within, because saw an opportunity where I could generate my own financial resources, because I quickly realized that, if I had my own, I wouldn't have to be dependent on my mom. And that was really the key driver for starting the business. So I went to my neighbor, her windows were dirty, and I asked to clean the windows, and she said, yeah. And 3 hours later, I made my first $5 in business. And, once you taste it, right, it's like you're hooked, so to say, right? So I just went, house to house over the summer, ended up actually having 2 of my other friends work for me while I was doing the sales, because I actually hated cleaning windows.
Mm.
But when I was a one-man shop, I kind of like did it because I had no other choice. But then I quickly realized that, hey, if I'm charging people $5, I can pay my friends, part of it, and then I keep the rest. And all I have to do is get the deal, and then they do the work. So, it was a win-win-win for everybody. So we did that, and before you know it, I had a small little business going on.
That's so cool that you realized at that age, like, hey, I don't like doing this, but I can get the deal and I can just outsource it. I think that's something that holds a lot of entrepreneurs back, is just doing the dirty work that they don't like doing, getting burnt out. I mean, that's amazing that you showcased that at an early age like that.
Yeah, and when I look back and I think about it, it was really smart, because what that enabled me to do, it enabled me to really just focus on what I call my zone of genius. I was really good at selling and really convincing my mom's friends to say yes. And then my friend would then just come and clean the windows, and they were shy and they wouldn't have gone to, stand up to a neighbor and really articulate what we were, providing for them as a solution. So I was able to identify that, and it worked wonders at that age.
I'm sure that first $5 you made too just felt amazing.
Oh yeah, the very next day when the ice cream truck came by, I was a big boy. I didn't have to go ask my mom anymore, and I brought myself an ice cream. So it was a wonderful feeling. But that was the day I really realized the power of entrepreneurship. If you are able to identify a problem and you come up with a solution, you are rewarded by the universe for that. And that's what really entrepreneurship is all about. We're problem solvers, and as we're providing value into people's lives, people are willing to pay for you to eliminate and solve problems in their lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the thing too. It's actually taking the time to add value, provide a solution that people want. And if you can do that on a scalable, high quality level, then you're going to be successful within your business.
Absolutely. I wouldn't agree more with you.
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. I also saw that you came to the US with, what was it, like $40 in your pocket, and then went to university, right?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. So when I give speeches, because sometimes I get to give keynote speeches and whatnot, especially when I'm at schools, I usually have some money in the back of my pocket, and I just lift it up. And sometimes it's $20, sometimes it's $40, and it's symbolic to when I came from Zimbabwe, and my parents could only give me $40 when I came here. And the lesson I tried to teach, is I always say, like, hey, who wants $40? And then you have a lot of people saying, like, me, and they just sit it in their seats. And then I just keep asking, who wants $40? And they just keep on getting it. And then I keep on doing it until someone in the crowd realizes that they have to walk up to the stage to get it. Because it is through taking action that you actually then get the result. So it is the same case with me, right? I came from a poor family. My parents wouldn't have been able to afford an American education. When I was in high school, a lot of my friends wanted to come to America. We all shared the American dream. But unlike my friends, a lot of my friends were just like, oh, yeah, I want to go to America. I want to go to America. They were just raising their hands. None of them were willing to actually walk up to the stage and grab that opportunity, which is what I did. And how I did that is I sat down and really thought about what are the resources that I need in order for me to go to America. So, I realized that I needed to study for the SATs. I needed to apply to the colleges, and so forth and so forth. But the key resource I needed was internet. Because without the internet, I wouldn't have been able to study for the SATs. Without internet, I wouldn't have been able to apply to all these schools that I was hoping would give me a scholarship to come. So what I did, instead of sitting down and say, like, well, I don't have any internet at home. I don't have any internet, so I won't be able to go to America. I went to an internet cafe and asked for a job. And they offered me a job to open up a night shift. So for me, it was beautiful because, I would work from, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night, lock it up and sleep in the internet cafe. And while I was in the internet cafe, from 11 p.m. to 6 in the morning, I would be able to search, all the things that I needed to do my research, write my college applications, study for my SATs, and it was all for free. So life, one of the key things you need to learn is that don't focus on the resources, focus on being resourceful. Because sometimes as an entrepreneur, I might only have $100,000 to start a business and you might have $1 million. But 5 years from now, I might have a much more successful business than yours, although you had more capital than I have, just because I am more of a resourceful entrepreneur than you. So that's really kind of like the journey that happened there. I applied to, tons of schools, and one school gave me a really good scholarship, Lynn University in Florida, and I was able to go there. But it took me more than 2 years between when I started the process to when it finally happened, which is another lesson too, in that, sometimes you have to persevere. I have friends who gave up too early, who just, applied the first round, got declined, and then they were like, you know what, it will never work out. Let me go to school here in Zimbabwe. But I had to apply, wait, apply again, apply to more schools. I was actually accepted at a school in Zimbabwe and I turned them down because I knew if I took that opportunity, I wouldn't be able to attend, the university of my dreams in the US. And I had to sacrifice something in order to get it. And after 2 years, I came to America with $40 in my pocket.
Wow. That's so cool that you just got the role at the cafe and you're like, all right, I need internet, but I also could use a job. Let me combine the two so I can get this internet, figure out the SAT, figure out, all the school situations. I mean, that's an amazing story right there.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a lesson, right? You have to do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
You can't sit around moaning and groaning for the world to give you things. You just have to put things into your own hands, and you just have to take control. And like I said, you have to be resourceful. If you don't have the resources but you have the dream, you're gonna have to figure out how to make a dream work. And as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. You're going to have to figure out how can you be resourceful. So if you're a 25-year-old, you're working a 9 to 5, you don't really like it, you want to become an entrepreneur, figure out what are some of the things that you could do and, apply leverage so that you can get your business going while you're still in the 9 to 5 and scale it to a point where you can then transition over and work on your business full time. So there are a lot of lessons that, people can extrapolate from that story of me when I was coming to America.
So you talked about in that story, perseverance and how your friends were, applying for a college, 2 or 3 of them getting rejected and just kind of giving up. I mean, what really kept you going through that process? Because I think perseverance is like a really hard thing sometimes to master, especially if you're getting rejected a lot.
To be honest, I don't really know. I was just crazy enough to believe that it will just happen. Like I would visualize myself in Miami. And more importantly, I didn't have a plan. Like coming to America was my plan A. Coming to America was my plan B, my plan C, all the way to Z. So that was the only plan I had. And I was willing, like I said, to do whatever it took to make it happen. So that's why it took me 2 years, right? Applying again until the door opened. So sometimes in life, you just have to keep on knocking until the door opens. And if you want to take over the island, you have to burn all the boats, right? Because that's how you take over the island. So for me, it was just making it like, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes in order for this to happen, and just having that belief in myself, in God, that by continuously doing this, it's going to unlock that dream that I always had. And just having that laser focus on that one thing is what led me to do it. But more importantly, I think it is the ability to be comfortable outside of your comfort zone. I was not in my comfort zone when I was pursuing that dream. And, I became comfortable not being in my comfort zone. But a lot of people, what happens is that once you're pushed outside of your comfort zone, you quickly want to go back to your comfort zone. and your inability to figure out a way to be comfortable in an uncomfortable environment is what leaves you achieving mediocre dreams. A lot of people who have achieved a lot of success in their life, you'll find out that they've gone through a lot of uncomfortable situations, and they've really mastered their ability to be comfortable outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah. So get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, or get
Yeah,
comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting you bring that up because, obviously I've hosted a lot of these podcasts, talked to a lot of successful individuals like yourself, and there's honestly like a reoccurring theme of them getting uncomfortable, just getting out of their comfort zone and just forcing themselves to make whatever dream or goal happen no matter what.
Yeah, it's you just have to do whatever you have to do to make your dream come true. Like, one of the things I think about, right, is that there was a point in time where Amazon was an uncomfortable goal for Jeff Bezos, right? It was like one of the things where he was like, I want to create this thing. And like a lot of people thought he was crazy. There was a point in time where Microsoft was also an uncomfortable dream for Bill Gates, right? But these guys did what they had to do. They were, comfortable with the uncomfortable, and they ended up achieving their dream. And my TEDx, which you referenced earlier, is exactly about that, which is, being comfortable with stepping outside of your comfort zone, because that is where the magic happens, right? Life begins, life starts at the beginning of your comfort zone. Life starts at the end of your comfort zone. That's the mindset you should have, in life.
Totally agree. And I mean, another fine example of that is Elon Musk. I mean, look what he's doing with SpaceX. He's trying to commercialize space travel, and it's kind of working. People I thought he was crazy at first, but same with Tesla as well. So
there you have it.
Yeah. So you mentioned you spent a lot of time kind of before we started in a lot of Fortune 500 companies. What learning lessons did you experience working in those environments that you think you've been able to really implement into your business today?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I learned is, you just don't become a multi-billion-dollar company. It's not something that just happens, right? You have to have discipline. You need to have processes in place, controls. So that was kind of like one of the key things I learned, which is, as an entrepreneur, you can get your business to a certain point, but if you really want to go to that next level, you quickly need to figure out how to put structures in place to enable that to happen. So, like, let's say, for instance, your ability to delegate, right? If you look into big multi-corporations, right? Yes, you might have the CEO, but they're like managers, vice presidents, and all these other roles. And you want to kind of like delegate tasks and also just empower people to be able to make decisions and drive the business. So that was kind of like one of the key things that I learned. So as I'm building Nunbelievable, the cookie company that we have right now, was still a startup, was still a small business, but you quickly want to identify really smart people to join your team, because it's all about the team, right? You can only be as strong as your weakest link. So if you have a strong team in place, you can really grow the business. But the thing that you also want to quickly do is you want to then start empowering people so that, they can bring their creativity out. They can also learn. Yes, they'll make mistakes, but that's how they'll learn and grow. And over time, you actually start seeing that what you were thinking was impossible is actually possible because you work as a team. So that's one thing that I really learned being in a big Fortune 500 company. And then the other thing too is that it differs from company to company, but the experience that I had when I was there was that sometimes you might think of a business, right? Because at the end of the day, the person who votes with their wallet is the person who really drives your business. So the ability to make sure that you're listening to your customers and you're taking in back and making sure that you're coming up with solutions to solve their pain points. That was a key insight. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we come up with an idea and we try to push it into the marketplace. But what you should do as an entrepreneur is you should actually fall in love with your customer and have them tell you what their problems are. And then you figure out how to solve those problems for them.
I like that because it's actually listening to what the customer wants. I think sometimes people just make products within a large organization. Oh, I hope this sticks. But I think it's so important to actually, your customers can be the one that's going to make you money at the end of the day. So,
yeah. So that was the other thing. And for me, I was part of the innovation team. So, part of what we had to do is we had to talk to customers. I would go to customers' homes, watch them do certain things, use certain products, take notes, sit down and really listen to their pain points. And then it is through that listening that you'll be like, oh, moms struggle with this. So if we were to create a product that did this, we would solve, a pain for them, because what they're really looking for is time, it's freedom, it's whatever. So if we solve this for them, they're willing to buy it. And that's how we would ideate and come up with businesses. So to give you an example, one of the brands I was working on was the brand called Crockpot. So I don't know if you know it. It's a slow cooker. Yeah. Everybody and their mother has one. And one of the things that we did is as we started talking to customers, we started understanding their routine, right? So a lot of women were telling us that, hey, it's very difficult for me to slow cook during the week, because in order for me to use my slow cooker, I have to prepare the meal before I go to work, before I take the kids to school. And during that time, I need to make breakfast. I need to get ready. So it's very difficult for me to use the slow cooker during the week. I only use it on weekends or on special occasions, whatever. So for us, we're like, okay, well, we can solve that. And the way we solve that is we created a meal delivery kit, frozen meals that, you could buy, put them in your freezer. And in the morning, instead of you worrying about taking out all the ingredients, chopping them up and putting it in the slow cooker, you just take that kit, open it up. It has all the ingredients in place. You just put the ingredients into the slow cooker, add water, turn it on, and it's done. So we took a 45-minute process and compressed it down to 2 minutes. And when we launched the business, moms got it because it was convenient. It was delicious. They always want to serve their family a delicious meal. It was easy, and it solved a huge pain point, because think about it. Every single day, the question, "What's for dinner tonight, honey?" is asked, right? And you have more than 100 million households in America and 365 days in a year. So if you do the math, it's like billions of times that question is asked, "What's for dinner tonight?" And it's a pain point. And we solved the big pain point, and we're able to take that business from 0 to over 20 million in less than 3 years, because we listened to the customer, we solved the pain point, and we were able to deliver so much value to the consumer's life that when we launched the product, it was a no-brainer for them, and we were able to grow and scale the business quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good point you made too, just about the amount of times people ask, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And you guys solved that pain point there. Something you mentioned was you were able to get feedback from the potential customer. Obviously, you're in a Fortune 500, so you would reiterate some of that probably to the product design team, and that would trickle down. I've been fortunate to just partner with a lot of Fortune 500 companies for my job, and something I've realized is kind of the communication can be a little slow. So once your company starts to scale up, I mean, what are some things to just make sure that it doesn't take, 4, 5, 6 weeks just to make a quick decision like that?
Yeah, well, as the entrepreneur, CEO, leader, it's your job to make sure that your company is efficient and to break those barriers. My style is to try to keep the organization as flat as possible, right? But it all depends with the type of organization that you have. But, one thing I would say is just making sure that you have a set of core values and core principles that everybody in the team knows about. And if one of your core values is that, hey, we're going to do things in an efficient manner and everybody's bought into that mindset, there shouldn't be any, barriers that slow things down. And also you can incentivize your team to deliver projects in a timely basis, So if, time is money, right? They say, right? So if something that could be done in 2 weeks is taking 8 weeks to do, figure out a way to incentivize, the team to deliver projects quickly because, they also want to make more money. So there's small little tricks like that you could do to make sure that you're not bogged down. But if you don't pay attention to it, then if you have people on your team who are not as motivated as others, they can drag the process. So, there are some very, very efficient, conglomerates out there, right, that are as nimble as a small startup because they pay attention to these small details. So, it's not always all big Fortune 500s are slow. Yeah. Some are, don't get me wrong, but some are very, very efficient as well. And it all comes down to the leadership. So I think you as the leader need to take responsibility and accountability and make sure that you are, empowering the right people within the organization to unlock any inefficiencies within the system.
Yeah, I love your point about core values. I think that's super important, no matter how big your organization is, to really instill those.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book, Spear, right?
Spear Method.
Okay. So real quick, before we go into that acronym, because I really want you to break it down, I think it's awesome. What was kind of like your time management technique to also run a company and get a book out there? Because it's kind of a selfish question, because I want to write a book hopefully within the next 5 years. So.
Yeah, well, whatever gets scheduled gets done, right? So the number one thing I'll tell you is that schedule time, block out time to do it. If it means that you have to wake up an hour early, if it means that you have to sleep an hour late, just do it, because that's the only way you're going to get it done. So I took a hard look onto my calendar to try to see, like, were there any blocks of time that I could schedule my book writing? And I identified two, well, in fact, three, but it was really two that really made the difference. So the first block was my commute into work, right? Okay. I live in New Jersey, I work in Manhattan, and it's an hour commute on the train for me to get into the city. The second block is my commute back home, is another hour. So by just committing to say, like, when I'm going into the office, when I'm coming back from the office, I'm going to use that time not to be playing around on social media, not to just be texting my friends or sleeping or whatever. I'm going to use that time to write. I actually unlocked 10 hours, right, per week to write.
Wow. Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
So it's really just identifying and really just being aware of your calendar, because time is wasted not in hours and days, but in minutes and seconds. So identify those minutes and seconds that you can allocate to those big priorities, and things will happen. And if writing a book is a top priority for you, then there are certain things on your calendar that are not priorities that you can knock out, right? You were talking about Manchester United and Chelsea and whatnot. There were days that I wouldn't watch the game because I could always find out the result.
True.
But I could focus on writing my book because my book was a priority. So, that would be my advice to you. And, it wasn't easy. It worked out, and it was done.
Yeah, I like your point there. Like, time is lost by minutes and seconds. I think that is so true. I have the whole screen time thing that it sends you on iPhone of like how much time you spend. And I mean, it'll be like you spend an hour and a half on social media. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was spending that much time. So that's a really good point. Let's go into that acronym though. I know you broke it down on your TED Talk. So I'd let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So the SPEAR method, the reason why I actually decided to write a book was in 2015, my sister passed away suddenly and tragically. She was bit by a dog that had rabies. and she died a few days later. And when I flew back to Zimbabwe to go to a funeral, I started asking myself questions like, was she happy? Was she fulfilled? Did she know her life's purpose, and did she actually get to pursue and achieve her life's purpose? And I didn't know the answers to those questions, obviously, because she wasn't there anymore to share with me. But I started then thinking about myself. Just like, hey, am I pursuing my life's purpose? Am I, doing things that will give me fulfillment, or I'm just chasing success? And those were things that were just circling in my head. And then I started thinking about other people, right? My sisters, my cousins, my friends, fellow entrepreneurs. And then I quickly realized that, hey, I'm probably not the only one who's kind of like maybe going through this where, I was in the corporate world at the time. I was just pursuing success, and I wasn't doing things that made me happy, right? I wasn't doing things that gave me fulfillment. So it kind of like was an epiphany for me to say, like, hey, I need to find a way to balance success and fulfillment. So the full title of the book is The Spear Method, 5 Simple Steps to Balance Success and Fulfillment. Because there's a way in life where you can be successful and fulfilled. In fact, life's ultimate failure is when you are successful, but you're not fulfilled. So you're a miserable billionaire or you're a miserable millionaire. Like you have all the money, but you're not happy. That's a failure in my eyes. So you want to make sure that as you're building all this financial wealth, as you're making those millions of dollars, you yourself are also doing things that give you fulfillment. So now let's step into the acronym. Now you know the background about the book and what the book is all about. The SPEAR method, it's an acronym, and S stands for seek your purpose. If you want to be successful in life, if you want to be fulfilled in life, you need to know what your purpose in life is. Because if you don't know your purpose, yes, you can do an odd thing here and there that gives you a lot of money, but you will never be happy because there's that vacuum and that void in you that will always be there because you're not pursuing your purpose. So being able to make sure that you're pursuing your purpose all the time will put you in full congruency with what you were brought into this world to do. So that's the first thing you need to do. So in the book, I talk about how you can find your purpose, the importance of finding your purpose, and some questions you can ask yourself and people who really know you to help you find your purpose if you don't already know what your purpose is. Now, let's say you do the exercise and you now know what your purpose is. The next thing you want to do is you want to plan. That's P, all right? SPEAR, so SP, you want to plan. When I came to America to study, I was in a school that allowed me to double major. So I double majored in business and aviation. So when I'd go to the flight school, the flight instructors would always tell me, hey, Kuda, you always need to create a flight plan before you take off. Okay. And then I go to business classes, hey, you need to create a business plan for your business. It's like plans everywhere, right? So I quickly realized that every flight needs a flight plan, right? Every business needs a plan. So every life also needs a life plan. So if you find out your purpose, you need to sit down and come up with a plan on how you're going to achieve it, right? Because think about it. If you were to get into an airplane today and you're flying to Europe, to Africa, wherever, and then you just go and say to the captain pilot, hey, do you guys have your flight plan? And he goes like, no, we're just going to wing it. How confident are you going to be, with the pilot's abilities to take you from point A to point B, right? Yeah. You won't really be confident because they're just going to go and they'll just try to figure it out, right? No, you want to be on a plane where the pilot has a plan. They know the direction, the coordinates that they're going to take to get there. So the same is true for your life. You should not be a spectator in your life. You need to be the captain pilot and take control, right? And take your life to the destination that you want to go. So similar to what we were talking about earlier, it's like my plan was like, hey, I want to come to America, right? So I had to plan to say like, hey, these are the things that I'm going to do in order to get there. And then my friends who didn't have a plan and they were just winging it, they're still there. So that's the second one. The third one, it's execute. So if you seek your purpose, if you come up with a plan, you need to execute the plan, right? Because what's the point of you, drafting out, this plan and then you shelve it somewhere, right? Execution is key and is the ultimate, difference maker, really, because when you take action, right, that is what brings results, right? You can't expect to have a six-pack if you're not going to the gym, working out, eating the right food. You might have a detailed plan on how you can get a six-pack, but if you actually don't wake up in the morning and go to the gym, if you actually don't go into the kitchen and make that salad instead of eating takeout, if you don't do it, you will never accomplish the goal. I remember, a few years back, my wife would always write these New Year's resolutions. She would always be like, hey, I want to run a 5K, right? At the beginning of each year. She did it maybe for 3 consecutive years. And then after she writes it down, she would never go out and run. She would never do anything. And then the year ends and she's never ran that 5K. So then I sat down with her. I'm like, listen, if the only way you're going to achieve the goal is by taking action. And sometimes in our minds, when we think about our life's purpose or that big dream that we want to achieve, it overwhelms us because if you've never done it before, it's so hard for you to achieve. So what you want to do is you want to then understand, like, okay, this is the big goal, but how can you break it down into smaller chunks that are achievable, that are attainable, and that don't overwhelm you, right? They still take you outside of your comfort zone, but it's something that's doable. So the process we came up with was like, hey, you will just go outside today and run for 5 minutes. So don't think about the 5K or anything like that. If you just spend 5 minutes outside running, great. And then next week, we take it from 5 to 10 minutes. And then from 10 minutes to 15 minutes. But what happened was, because she was now taking action every day, consistently, in less than 2 months, she ran a 5K with me. But for 3 years, she would write it down as a goal, come up with a plan, but never really execute the plan. So execution is key.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one after E is A, which is achieve. And now this is an interesting one because the first and most important achievement you will make all the time is you stepping outside of your comfort zone. Every single time you do it, it's an achievement. You might not achieve that big milestone you're trying to achieve, but the fact that you actually took action to do it, it's an achievement. But the key thing about the achievement stage is that similar to breathing, right? How do you stay alive, right? You stay alive because you take breaths consecutively, right? So if you take this first one and that goal is achieved, if you then say like, oh, I took a breath at 6:46 p.m., I don't have to breathe again ever, what's going to happen?
Not good.
You're going to die.
Yeah, not
right?
good. Yeah.
So what you need to do is once you make that small achievement, you celebrate it, pat yourself in the back. Don't live in that moment for too long, but repeat, which is the last stage of the SPEAR method, right? So you make a small achievement, you repeat that process, because it is through that repetitive process of you taking action, executing, achieving your goal, repeating that is where you will be in constant pursuit of your purpose. You're always taking a look at your plan, making modifications to it, and then ultimately you will achieve success and fulfillment, because fulfillment and success, they're actually attained through the journey, right? So don't think of them as destinations, because once you, let's say if your goal was to hit $1 million, once you hit that $1 million, do you want to stop there? No, you want to set another bigger goal and keep pushing, and then maybe set something different and keep pursuing for your life. So that is really the SPEAR method. And, it's something that I do and practice every day. And I wish more entrepreneurs and people beyond entrepreneurs would be able to practice it, because through that method, you will be able to achieve success and fulfillment.
I love your point about, well, first off, I love all those points in the Spear method, but I just really like your points you made about execution. I think, especially in the time we're recording right now, the start of the new year, people just have these goals, these plans. That's step one, but then they never really execute on what's happening. And I like the point you made about the 5K. Like, it's all about consistency. You know, run 5 minutes here, I run 10 minutes. I saw you brought up in your TED talk, David Goggins. Like, he's a prime example. He was 300 pounds. He just went out and ran 60 seconds one day, and now he's running for like 5 days straight. You know, so yeah, that's a really good point, man. I love that. It's a cool story too, how you came up with it, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I also want to really touch on is, I know with your cookie company, you provide meals for people in need. So when did you really like kind of discover your passion for giving back? Because I think those are some of my favorite entrepreneurs that really give back to from their success that they've had.
Yeah, I think for me, the seeds of giving back are rooted back to my time in Zimbabwe. So a couple of things happened. So right around when I was maybe 10, so like, maybe a year after I started my business, I noticed a group of kids my age who were not going to school. And I always wondered, I was like, well, are they homeschooled, or like, why is it that they don't have to deal with this, right? Because think about it, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and you're going to school, you're not really like super excited about it. And then you're passing by like, a house in your neighborhood and there are kids in their pajamas, laughing, playing, having fun, and you have to go to school. So one day I was like, I just need to go and understand, like, why is it that they don't go to school? So anyway, I go and I spend the day with them. And I learned that they were orphans. Their parents had passed away. They were living with their grandma. But unlike public education in America, where it's free, in Africa, you have to pay. So their grandma, she didn't really have any source of income, so she couldn't pay for their education. So they were not going to school and they were not getting an education. So for me, it was just kind of like mind-boggling. And then I asked this little girl, Sarah, a question. And the question was, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was expecting her to tell me something like, hey, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And she looks at me straight in my eyes and she goes like, Kuda, my parents are dead. I don't go to school. I'm just waiting to die. And in my mind, I was like, wow, like this, 8, 9-year-old has lost the ability to dream just because others, right, haven't been able to step in and fill in the void, of, her parents passed away and say like, hey, we're going to look after you. We're going to provide for you. They didn't do it. So it just gave me this huge desire to want to provide opportunities for others who don't have opportunities. Because I remember that day when I was walking home, it hit me as young as I was that the only difference between me and Sarah was the fact that I was born in this family and she was born in this family, but everything else was the same. We both have a heart. Our blood is red, we breathe, we're human beings. But just because I was fortunate enough to be born in a different family than her, we were facing totally different circumstances, but importantly, very different life prospects, right? Because, she's not going to school and I had the opportunity to go to school. So it was at that point that I made a promise to myself that I was going to use whatever I had to, number one, leave Zimbabwe and come to America, because at that point in time, I kind of like figured like, well, if the people in Zimbabwe can't really figure things out, maybe I need to go to another country, become successful in that country, and then make a difference and change lives. So that became the inspiration for me to leave Africa and come to America. And it was something that was always in the back of my mind. So fast forward to, I'm in America, I'm in college. I remembered that life mission of mine. And I started my first social entrepreneurial business while I was in college with $150 in my dorm room. I started a clothing company called AFR Clothing, where we would donate 20% of our profits to provide scholarships to educate kids in Africa. And, that business took off. We educated hundreds of children, right? Actually, I got a message a couple of weeks ago. One of our students who we took when they were in high school, graduated university. She went and she studied biology. And we basically changed the trajectory of her life and her future generations because we broke the poverty cycle.
Yeah,
right?
That's amazing.
Now she has a different trajectory. Now her kids are going to have a different trajectory and her grandkids. And it really just came out from one small action of love, of me taking action on a very simple idea, a t-shirt company, but it created value within the universe. And that value, we were able to extract it and invest it into someone else's life. And now what she's doing through her degree in biology, saving lives, providing, other people with healthcare, and like the return on that small investment is infinity, right? When you think about it. So that was my first step in social entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And remember, I told you, I started asking myself questions about purpose and fulfillment while I was still in corporate America, which led me to write the book. It made me realize that I needed to work on something that had more of a meaning, more of a purpose. So when the opportunity came about to start Nonbelievable, for me, it was a no-brainer. So I quit a high-paying corporate job to get into a startup because I knew that by working on this project, it would give me fulfillment. And we would also be able to achieve success. So that's how we started Nonbelievable, and it was really out of an individual who learned about a group of nuns who were being evicted, and he decided to step in and then came up with a vision of creating a cookie company that had a social mission. And because of my experience creating and running food businesses, right? Remember I told you about Crockpot Cuisine. They called me and they're like, "Hey, Kuda, would you like to take this vision and turn it into reality?" And for me, it was a no-brainer. So yeah, that's the story behind Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's so cool too. I mean, just with that impact you made for that person and their future family, like that's something I've been really realizing is one small impact has a significant ripple effect that you may not even realize.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's so cool. I asked you this before we started recording, but what's the favorite cookie that you guys offer with Nonbelievable? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, so my favorite up until now, and this is January 2021 when we're recording this, is oatmeal raisin.
Okay.
So that's my favorite cookie. But by the time the listeners are going to listen to this, we're going to have new varieties that we're going to be launching. So in a couple of weeks, we're launching a new line. I won't dive into details yet. So you have to go to nonbelievable.com and you're going to see that new line. And there are 2 flavors in there that I love. And part of what I love about it is, and you'll see them once you get there, is that we use ingredients from my home country, Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
So
really cool.
These ingredients, it's a beautiful story. And the beauty in the story is that they have a lot of health benefits. So think about vitamins, antioxidants. It's kind of like a new superfood in kind of like the cookie space. So like back in the day when acai became really popular, this ingredient that we put into the cookies, it's kind of like the new acai. That's number one. But number two, we're sourcing it from Zimbabwe, my home country, and we're able to provide a better living standard for the women that go and harvest and supply us with this ingredient. If they were to sell it to the locals in Zimbabwe, they wouldn't make as much as they make when they sell it to us. So when we're helping improve the standard of living for communities. And remember, we are breaking cycles, right? And you're now establishing a new trajectory for generations because of that. So those two flavors are my new favorite ones. So when you go on our website and if you really dig through, I've given you enough information for you to be able to find what those flavors are. Those are my favorite flavors.
Nice. We'll have to check those out once they become more live within the next few weeks. But Kuda, along those lines, I mean, where can people connect with you, learn more about Non-Believable, and just really get some of those cookies?
Yeah, well, people, listen, let me give you my home address. You can just come to my house. And I'm just joking. They can find me on Instagram.
Cool.
It's Kuda Biza, Kudabiza. Very easy and simple name. So you can just find me on Instagram, Kuda Biza. You can also go to my website, spearmethod.com. And you can learn about the Spear Method, about the book. And if you're down for a delicious treat that also provides a nutritious meal to someone in need, you can go to nunbelievable.com. So N-U-N, like a nun, the sisters, believable.com. And feel free to, order some cookies, support us, and let's help fight hunger here in the U.S.
Absolutely. And I'll put all those links in the show notes as well, just to make them easily clickable. Last question that I always ask everyone is obviously something that you talked about is success is really found throughout the journey. So what would be one word that you would really describe the journey that you've had in life so far?
Fun.
I love that. Word.
It's been fun. There's always, some things that make it interesting and, instead of moaning or crying about it, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, because at the end of the day, right, you're living every day and, at some point, your day will come to transition over. So just have fun. What's the point of stressing and being sad and miserable? Enjoy the bus ride. Look at the beautiful scenery. Don't look at the ugly scenery. It happens. We acknowledge that. We know it. But, just always apply a positive perspective to it.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Kuda, man, thanks for hopping on. I really enjoyed having you as a guest. Talking about those cookies is definitely making me hungry right now too. So
cool. Well, hope you grab a box. And thank you so much for having me and enjoy.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode of Next Level Minds. Be sure to connect with Kuda on the social media platforms that he suggested. Also, check out his cookies. Non-Believables is where you can find that. I'll put the link below in the show notes. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great week ahead.